Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. Use the chat while people tune in and let us know where you're joining us from. I think our panelists are all somewhere in the state of New York. I don't remember asking Stephanie where she was, but Kirkland, hello. Oh my gosh, look at all of you coming from all over the country. I love this. We'll let a few more people get tuned in and then we will get started. Hello. So fun. Pittsburgh, California, Atlanta, Montreal. We were just talking about Montreal. Oh, Laurie was your mother. Hello, welcome. We're like, I'm honored that you're here. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. All right. Let people log in a little more. On Orlando, Vancouver, Canada. I miss Canada. I cannot wait to get back to Canada. Right. I think we're going to go ahead and
It's amazing. People from all over.
Yeah, it's so cool. This is like one of my favorite parts of doing this, actually. All right. Now that number is still going up, so I'm going to wait a little bit longer. Seattle, good. Finally representing Seattle. Okay. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. I'm Laura Hamilton. I have a cookbook shop in Seattle called Larder, and I want to welcome all of you to this celebration of Laurie Colwin. This is an event that I have looked forward to for months now. I was so delighted to see that Vintage, Random House, and Harper Perennial were reissuing her books. She has had such a resurgence in recent years, and I know how influential she is with so many food writers and cooks and people who just love good personal storytelling. And I'm absolutely thrilled at the panel that we've pulled together to talk about Laurie and really celebrate her and all that she means to all of us. We are joined this evening by Ruth Reichl, who did the foreword for the new edition of Home Cooking, by Deb Perelman, who did the foreword for the new edition of More Home Cooking, by Stephanie Danler, who is a novelist and memoirist, just like Laurie was. And they are going to be in conversation with on a panel led by Kerry Diamond of Cherry Bombe, who also has a quote inside the new edition of Home Cooking. We will leave time for some questions, so please use that Q&A button if you have questions. That will make it a lot easier for us to keep track of those because there are so many of you who tuned in this evening, so thank you for that. I will drop links to purchasing both of the books in the chat so that you can find that easily. Home Cooking comes out in a couple of weeks. More Home Cooking is available now, so if you order both, we'll just wait till they're both here and send them to you in a bundle. So thank you so much for those of you who've ordered it already. We appreciate you supporting this talk by purchasing the books from us. Very quickly, I just want to say that I am in the middle of doing a kitchen remodel, and so Laurie's book has Home Cooking has actually been really important to me over the past few weeks as I have thought about how to handle cooking in basically on the counter that you see behind you, this like little tiny stretch. And it's also given me permission to do my dishes in the bathtub. So please join me in welcoming Ruth Reichl, Deb Perelman, Stephanie Danler, and Kerry Diamond.
Hi. Oh my gosh, Laura's gone. Okay, it's us. Hi, everybody. Laura's back.
No, I'm leaving now, though.
Okay. I'll miss you. Bye. Hi, everybody. How are you?
Happy to be here.
Happy to see you. I haven't, Ruth, I saw you not too long ago, but Deb and Steph, I have not seen you two in quite some time. I hope you're doing well.
Hanging
Yeah,
in.
it's been too
Absolutely.
long.
Yeah.
And so exciting to see how many people have joined in from all over. I mean, that was incredible seeing all those cities. Where are all of you joining us from? I'm in Brooklyn. Ruth, where are you?
I'm in Columbia County, upstate New York.
Steph
Los Angeles, baby.
and Deb.
Manhattan.
Manhattan. All right. Let's get, someone's getting a phone call.
Yeah.
Let's get started. Ruth, do you need to take that?
I'm just hanging it up, but I think it's, no, I don't need to take it.
All right, we're going to jump right in here. I know I'm so honored to have been asked to do this because I love Laurie. I first encountered Laurie, I think it was probably 1991 when she was writing her column for Gourmet magazine. I just graduated from college. Being a foodie wasn't a thing. I didn't come from a foodie family. I was kind of learning my way around food and cooking and the kitchen and all of that, and had discovered her essays and just completely fell in love. And then one day the essays ended and I really felt like I had lost a friend. And, we didn't have the internet back then in 1991, or maybe someone did, but I didn't. And, there was no way to touch base with other people who loved her similarly or to find out what had happened. So I was so thrilled, later to discover, years later to discover Laurie's essays collected in a book. And I think this is the 2010 edition. And Ruth, you've written an introduction to the new version that's coming out in just a week or so. Stephanie's got. Okay, let me start because we want to hear from the three of you. And like Laura said, use the Q&A function. And in a little bit, we'll start to take everyone's questions. Okay, I'm sure you have a lot of questions for our amazing panelists. All right, I would love to know when you were first introduced to Laurie. Ruth, why don't we start with you? Because a lot of people think you knew Laurie.
I did not know Laurie. To my everlasting sadness, I did not know her. I actually encountered her fiction. When I was living in Berkeley and had no money, I would go to the library every day and look. I mean, I am a fiction addict, and I found her first book and then read every novel she wrote. And I was very late to her food essays, in fact. Those were not the years that I was reading Gourmet. So, I thought of her as this wonderful novelist who did something that I thought was very important, which was make sort of ordinary people, lives that were familiar to me, seem interesting and worth writing about. I mean, what I loved about her books was not a whole lot happened. It was just about people living their lives, and she honored that. And so, later when I found her food writing, it was like, oh my God, she's doing the same thing. She's just making ordinary cooking seem worthwhile.
Yeah. Stephanie, how about you?
I moved to New York in 2006 and I could not boil water for pasta. I knew how to read, so I should have been able to, but I had been working in restaurants since I was 15 years old, and it actually ruined cooking for me because I just ate at work all the time and would steal food from work and bring it home. And when I moved to New York City, I was 22 and I was like, I need to learn how to cook. So I went out and bought a Gourmet magazine, and that was really my gateway to this entire life that I wrote about in Sweet Bitter and the life I have now. Then I started collecting back issues of Gourmet magazine, and I would occasionally find them on the street. I remember one day in the West Village, there was a stack of 32 magazines, and I carted them into Union Square Cafe, and I was like, I've hit the jackpot. But I also would take them from friends. I still have them all. And that was how I first read Laurie Colwin. Then coming to home cooking was this actually has to do with Ruth and Deb, the story, now that I'm realizing it. You remember in the late aughts, the blogs, the food blogs, Smitten Kitchen being one of the originals. But there was also 101 cookbooks, and there was Orangette, and I read whatever Deb and these women were reading. And that was how the Laurie Colwin crossover happened. And I mean, she was like me. Ruth saying that she was like her, but she was also that apartment, I had a bathtub in the kitchen of my apartment and the toilet was down the hall. And she made being young and poor and resourceful into something really glamorous that I have tried to like carry through in my work, in my life. I loved it. I mean, she feels like a friend.
Deb, how about you?
I think I heard of her first probably in 2007 or 2008, and I had started Smitten Kitchen in 2006. And so I had no idea what I was doing with that, because I had no business writing about food. I had no experience. I was not a cook. I was just like had opinions on food. That was really it, which is, I don't know. So I didn't think that much of it, but pretty soon after, I was collecting comments on the site and readers would say, you've got to read Laurie Colwin. I think you'd like Laurie Colwin. And that's when I got her home cooking essay. And I think I described it as eating the book whole, probably in like 2 days. I didn't have kids back when I had so much free time. And then I went right into more home cooking. And I mean, and all of a sudden her name was showing up on my site all the time. Like if she's talked about something casually, I had to make it. I think the first thing I made, I call it on the site bread without a timetable. I mean, she did not invent the idea of using less yeast and letting bread rise for a longer amount of time, so it could be on your own schedule. But I mean, she applied it to our real lives. It was this idea that like you could go to a play date, you could pick up your kid from school, your bread wasn't going to collapse and die. Like it would wait for you rather than you having to adjust your life around it. And I loved it. It was her energy, her spirit of wanting everybody to be happy in the kitchen and everybody to be successful and to feel good about their cooking, and for it to be like reasonable and affordable and healthy was just so human in this moment. And I was thinking Ruth would probably be a far better person to explain the context of this, but I remember we were really in this moment of like chef worshiping. And I feel like we're still there, where all of a sudden we wanted to get all of our cooking ideas and all of our recipes from chefs. And I was like, why? It's so different cooking in a restaurant kitchen. I want to get my recipes from this person who really cooks at home and will tell you what works and what doesn't. And I went on to make her this beef and barley soup. I think I had like broken my collarbone, but it was like just throw 3 things in a pot and walk away. I mean, it was like a pretty minor thing as far as things go. And then later, I mean, a lot of these are things that Laurie Colwin adapted from other places too. And I love that she always talked about where it came from, and, you know, which I think is another thing it's just another thing I like a lot in food, where I hear where a recipe comes from. So I'll just go on and on. So I'm going to cut myself off, but it was around 2008, and I basically haven't stopped talking about her since, I think.
This is so amazing to me, because, you know, I'm talking about discovering her in 1975, and you're talking about discovering her 30 years later.
It's wild.
Which
I wonder what she would have thought of it.
Happen to writers, you know. I mean, it's pretty amazing to still be new 30
and
years
yet
in.
You open the book and it's like maybe she's talking about like low fat, or like, all right, maybe boiled beef isn't currently having a moment, but it should. But she's just, it sounds like it could have been written, the voice, the friendliness today.
Deb, when I was learning how to cook during this exact moment that you're talking about and using your blog, so much, it was so focused on chefs. It was like read Thomas Keller's book on how to make a reduction. And then you've got like creamed spinach with jalapenos. And I'm like, I want that. I want the beef and barley soup. I want to make things in one pan with vegetables that I picked up from a street vendor. I don't necessarily want to trek all over the city looking for exotic ingredients. She was kind of the antithesis of this very like heightened technique driven moment.
Yeah, I feel like the most important thing she said was that she'd learned a lot from disasters. You know, I mean, she reveled in the bad food. And, we are all going to make bad food at some point. So, having her voice in my head when I make something bad is like, oh, throw it out. It's okay. We'll go out.
Yes, it's the sense of humor about it, right? She's like that. She devotes an entire essay to kitchen disasters. And I love that because, of course, if I oversalt something and I have people coming over, I'm like shaking, about to cry, downing wine. And then it's like, do what Laurie would do and laugh about it.
Hilarious. Exactly.
Deb,
Nobody wants to eat perfect food.
I was so happy when I found out that, well, all of you were on this panel because I'm such big fans of all of yours. But Deb, I've always felt like you were definitely a descendant of Laurie. I remember when I started reading you for the first time, and I heard a lot of Laurie's voice in what you were writing.
Well, I'm extremely flattered to hear that. And I don't agree, but thank you. That means a lot though. I kept thinking there must have been others like her that were just writing about food from like a real life perspective, but maybe they just weren't getting printed as widely. It was either like a very home ec style of cooking, practical, good use of ingredients, tight times, like making your husband happy when he comes home at 6 o'clock, or it was kind of chefery, I guess. I mean, there must be more to it, but that's my impression of reading other writing at that time. And then she was just like a normal person with a normal life who wanted to be excited. Well, normal her life was, but she acted like it was normal. And she just wanted to be delighted by the food she made and eat food that she loved. And she wasn't really concerned with many other things as far as her food writing was going.
Let's talk about some of Laurie's food writing. Do any of you have a favorite Laurie food essay? Ruth, anything that comes to mind?
I mean, I truly love them all. It's like you read one and you go, oh, God, I forgot how great this was. And then you read another one and you say that again. I mean, I think the thing that really resonates with me, which, I think it's really hard for young people today to understand how really revolutionary it was that this woman was saying in the 70s and 80s. She was talking about hunger. Nobody writing about food at that time had that kind of humanity. And to be writing in Gourmet magazine and saying, we're the richest country in the world and there are people who are hungry. It's like every time she talks about, working in that kitchen for homeless people, my mind sort of explodes because you just didn't read that in those days from high-end food writing people.
Sorry. Wants to join the conversation.
I think they're all so good. As I was like flipping through this edition of the book, I was like, they're all perfect. But I do think that Alone in the Kitchen with Eggplant is probably her most widely read, much lauded essay. But I truly think it's one of the best young in New York City essays of all time. Like it's up there with Didion's Goodbye to All That. It captures a moment in time so beautifully that you would give a limb to be that young woman again or that kid again. The apartment is so iconic. I feel like people who have read Laurie Colwin, they don't necessarily remember the recipes. They remember that apartment and washing the dishes and the toaster oven that she puts out on the curb and not having space for 4 people. And I mean, there's so much magic. I really think it's a masterpiece.
And a lot of people are sharing their favorites in the comments. So go ahead, if you want to share what your favorite Laurie essay is or recipe. And there are a lot of votes for the black cake essay and recipe for those who remember that. Fruitcake Adventures. Deb, how about you?
Of course, I'm like, which essay was it? But I know, I'm like, is it this? I know I read it recently. All right. So I don't know, but I loved when she talked about, for some reason, it just stuck with me. Maybe it was just like over COVID, especially where we were looking for comfort, but she wrote something about nursery food at one point.
Oh yeah.
And I think this must be with the rice pudding recipe and stuff like that. But like, imagine at this point where all these, I don't know. I mean, it's always been like chefs boasting what they can do, as they should, too. And she wrote this thing about this unabashed love for nursery foods, soft foods that like were easy and unchallenging. And it's just, I don't know. It's very like unsexy food. And I loved it. I think of that term all the time, like when my kids aren't feeling good, or we've just like had enough, or we had like a really exhausting day, and the thought of buttered noodles or rice pudding or just like a very simple bone broth sounds amazing. I think, I don't know, it doesn't get enough love. Like we generally talk about comfort food, it's usually like, I don't know, almost like stoner food. Like, it's like it's usually like cheese on top of bacon on top of an avocado with like 6 other things in it, but it's not, just like actually something kind of plain and soft.
Ruth, you have some thoughts on the rice pudding?
I love that rice pudding. It's incredibly simple. It tastes like lemon, and it's not a custard. I mean, most rice puddings are sort of like a lot of egg. I mean, this is literally just milk, rice, lemon. It has a kind of wonderful purity, and I love lemon. I mean, I the first time I discovered that recipe, it was, oh, this recipe was made for me, and I do love it.
Oh. Any favorite Laurie wisdom? And again, if there seems to be no consensus, I notice in the comments, the favorite recipe. And I wish we could publish these comments because the comments are amazing. Who's got some favorite Laurie wisdom?
Oh my goodness.
I can shout out one line. We put this in our cookbook, which came out 4 years ago this month, that no one who cooks alone. And that played over in my head so many times through the pandemic, when it was just me and the cat that you all met recently for a very long time.
A cute cat.
And I just would always, I had Laurie's voice in my head, all these years later, like so many of our people tuning in do, and the three of you do. Stephanie?
I'm looking. I
don't so many, but there's a great line in there about cooking for yourself and eating alone, which is one of my great joys in life, and has only, since I've had 2 kids, become an even greater impossible joy. But also, I think I really took to heart, she has something in her dinner parties essay about not trying new food, just like a salad, cheese, bread, and something that you know how to execute. And when I first learned how to cook, I think I was like, I'm gonna have everyone make their own spring rolls, and I'm gonna like buy 19 different ingredients. And now I'm just like, I'll make a bolognese, and that will that is from Laurie.
Yeah.
Actually, one of my favorite Laurie lines is something that I think she's dead wrong about, but it plays in my head every time I cook lamb.
Oh, yeah.
Where lamb is just disgusting. And I love that she would just write that, even though I think she's completely wrong on that. But I think about it a lot, because one of the things that she does so beautifully is just, inject her opinions very boldly. And, it doesn't matter if she's right or wrong, she's right. It is, I am right, and you will listen to this.
Laurie was also tremendously funny, which I had kind of forgotten. And I don't know, I find there's not a ton of humor in food writing today.
No.
Ruth, do you disagree?
I hope you're wrong about that.
No, Allison Roman's funny. Allison can be funny, and I can think of a lot of people who are, and opinionated. I think that Laurie, and that's to Laurie's credit, right? Like that you can say like, I don't like tomatoes, so there's no tomatoes in my book. And I think there are a couple people who have taken that ethos seriously.
Oh, Deb, we're getting a lot of votes for Deb is funny. So
Deb is funny.
Deb is
That's
funny.
very sweet. My kids do not agree. I have to come in here and correct you. I told terrible jokes, but thank you.
Deb, is there enough
I don't know.
humor in food writing?
Is it self-deprecation or is it like actual humor? It might be like the same thing in my Jewish neurosis.
There's a lot,
I
there
was
are a
trying
lot
to.
of laugh out loud funny lines in her book.
There really is. And you feel like she doesn't take herself too seriously. And you don't feel like she's ever just making an opinion to have one. Like it's fun to have opinions. Like you feel like she really means it. And she says it in a way that she's not like, I don't know, maybe it's just like our age of Twitter and stuff like that. She's not picking a fight with you. She's just having an opinion, which is lovely. I think because when I picture a great dinner party that I miss having and I want to have them again, I like people who disagree a little bit, but who know how to disagree.
Mhm.
Like, you know how to say, well, your opinion is terrible, but I love you. Let's have a drink. Like, that's the mood that I think we all want, as opposed to like this idea that everybody has to like be on the same page about everything. So I guess being able to have a strong opinion without picking an argument with it is like, it's a nuanced gift, I think.
Ruth, we've
Wait.
got
I was
the
looking
opening
at,
page.
Wait.
Tender at the bone. So damn funny.
Wait, you guys, Ruth and I were at a dinner party and you and Jonathan Gold were fighting about something in the way that food writers fight. And I don't remember no, was it about Langers?
I have no idea. Jonathan and I fought all the time.
Yeah, but it's to Deb's point. It's like people that really care about food should be able to sit there and scream at each other about lamb and then cheers at the end of it. It's all
Probably
the,
was Langers. I mean, I think
I think he loves Langers and you're like, on Langers.
come on, I'm from New
You have
York.
to tell us
You didn't
what
let
Langers-
LA have the best deli.
You have to tell us what Langers is as a New Yorker.
Oh, it's the Jewish deli. It's been there forever. It's downtown. It's an iconic Los Angeles restaurant that
But
Jonathan.
it's not Katz's.
This is exactly how this started. And I don't love Langers enough to carry on Jonathan's spirit here. So Ruth wins and it's Katz's forever.
I was just going to say those are fighting words. In
Um,
LA. All right, let's jump to young Laurie. So Laurie published her first short story at the age of 25 in the New Yorker in 1969.
wow.
I'm curious.
Wow.
I know, right? What do you think 25-year-old Laurie would be doing today? Deb.
No.
I'm gonna put you on the spot, Deb.
What do I think she'd be doing today? I feel like she'd probably have a lot of odd jobs. And maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm projecting and stuff like that, but I imagine that a lot of the people I know who are under 30 these days, really like career paths are not that clear. You know, it wasn't like, it's certainly the days of getting a job and keeping it for 10 to 20 years are sadly long gone. And so you've got this gig economy and you're probably picking up work left and right and you're working a lot more hours for it. And I guess she'd probably be living like definitely pretty deeply in Brooklyn, I think, for sure. And maybe something cute. It would be really charming though. It would definitely be charming, or it would be charming because she put charm in it. And I'm trying to think. I feel like she would be probably waiting tables too. Can we see that? I don't know. Maybe ghost writing. I could see her doing some ghost writing. She's such a good writer. People would want a piece of that.
And feel free.
But then again, wait. In this version, would she have published a story in the New Yorker at 25? Because that's a completely different projection.
It's your story to make up.
Yeah. I think she would be great fun and everybody would know that she had the best dinner parties and want to get an invite.
Stephanie, how about you? What do you think Laurie would be up to?
I think that I have no clue what 25-year-olds are up to. And I'm going to say something sacrilegious and awful and just say they're, what do 25-year-olds do? They make content and they have TikTok cooking channels and millions of followers and cults around their personalities. And I think that Laurie seems actually private from what I can in her cooking, her food writing, but I can imagine her having a personality that was suited to the internet. But like the thought of making TikToks all day, I just want to die. So
No,
I
I
don't want to
don't-
wish that
no.
for her, but I have to imagine she would be creating content full time. I think if you are trying to cook, if you're trying to have a column, if you're trying to write for the Times, like let's at least say that she'd have a Substack newsletter.
She'd have a very good Substack. She would definitely have a Substack.
Comments are very funny if you're all reading the comments. Ruth, how about
I
you?
am. I'm enjoying.
I think she would be living in a kind of large group place in Bushwick with a bunch of other really interesting people, very multi-culti, and she would be writing a TV show about it and probably have a deal already.
Def being
Yeah.
TV. Ruth is right. She screw TikTok. She would have a Netflix show. 100%.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she would. I mean, she would be writing great dialogue and
Yeah.
and she would be writing about this place that she was living in. You know, she would be writing from real life, only she would be doing it for TV instead of for books in the New Yorker.
Ugh.
And
I feel like she would be a stunningly self-aware 25-year-old. I feel like that's, maybe I'm wrong, but even in her early writing, I feel like she's kind of pretty self-aware for her age. I mean, I'm saying this was stunningly not self-aware at 25, so I recognize this in people, but I just feel like, you know, a real idea of what she was, what she would do, what she wouldn't do. So maybe she wouldn't get dragged as much around by jobs and really like keep her eye on the prize. I hope so.
I think she had a lot of self-confidence. I mean, look, selling a story to the New Yorker at 25 would give you self-confidence.
As well she should. It's
Ruth,
incredible.
when did your first cookbook? Were you 25 when that came out?
No, I was 21, 22.
Oh my God.
So Laurie could have had a cookbook.
Yeah, but I don't think she would have had a cookbook. I mean, I think, you know, food was in a very different place then. So, you know, I think she would not have been writing so much about food as culture.
Yeah.
And food would have been part of it, but I don't see her writing a cookbook today. I mean, there's too much competition.
So for everybody who's tuned in, you should check the comments because Laurie's child, RF, who's obviously an adult now, who many of you know from Laurie's writing, has shared some, I think, Flickr links to old photos of Laurie. So if you want to check that out, and RF, thank you so much for sharing those. I know a lot of people have peeked at them already and are very moved by them. So earlier, I did send some of these questions to the panelists. And they all said one of the questions you did not ask is what would Laurie be doing today if Laurie were still with us? And you all had some thoughts on that.
Well, I'll start. I mean, I think, you know, she pretty much wrote about where she was in her life. So she was writing about very young people when she was 25. And, you know, by the time she was in her 40s, she was writing about 40-year-olds. She would be writing about what it's like to be an aging person in America today. She would be writing novels of manners, but you know, she would have just kept up. I mean, I feel like in so many ways she was like the narrator of my generation, and she would still be doing that. And I wish she were.
Stephanie?
You have to imagine that she's living in a house upstate and just taking long walks and spending all day cooking, and people are coming to her from all over the US. I think if she was still with us, you can imagine what her network would be like, right? Like the connections that she had already made and would continue to make. And you imagine as a homebody that she creates this home, and maybe it was on, you know, the Upper West Side, or maybe it's upstate. And I just imagine making the pilgrimage to Laurie's, or I like to imagine it.
RF said she would definitely be living in Connecticut today.
Great.
Wow.
Same vibe.
Or
Oh.
Cornwall.
Okay.
How about you?
I was just picturing her in New York forever, but I trust that her own child would have a better sense of things, or maybe she'd have an extra place. I guess I was trying to imagine, and I'm like, would she have done it? And I literally had this whole conversation with myself, like, would she do it? Oh God, I hope she doesn't do it. I'm like hoping to myself that she wouldn't have written that essay about why New York has gone downhill since she knew it, which every old New Yorker ultimately writes. Like, New York when I got here was so much better because of this, that, or the other. And they're all correct, but they're also all, I don't know. I hope she wouldn't have written that essay. And then I think I just would have loved to get her. I feel like she would have defied the mold of what we expected of her. Like, maybe we would have expected her, oh, you're an older woman, you should write about aging. And she would have been like, no, I'm going to write about what interests me. Like, she would have insisted on her humanity in all of her projects. And I think we all would have been luckier for it.
Ruth, we had talked earlier about, you were surprised that Deb had discovered her work so many years after it had been published. I want to talk about why Laurie endures so much and what this new generation of home cooks is taking from Laurie. Why, in your mind, why does she endure?
Because, well, she's a wonderful writer. I mean, to begin, when I got to Gourmet, every new writer came and said, I want to be the next Laurie Colwin. And, she had an incredible voice, and she is the most lovable writer. I think that's it. She literally sort of makes everybody who reads her feel like they want to be her best friend, and that if she knew them, they would be her best friend. It's an amazing quality in a writer to be able to do that, to make your readers feel so seen. And it sort of transcends time.
I don't know if you ever thought about this, but if Laurie had still been at Gourmet when you got there, did you ever give thought to what some fun projects could have been that you and Laurie would have worked
on? I didn't.
That is my dream world. What Kerry just said, I want to live in that world. Ruth and Laurie go to Spain. Ruth and Laurie go to Los Angeles.
No, if she had still been alive, I think I probably would have said to her as an editor, think out of the box, do something that, think of some project that's a dream project that you've never been able to do, and that is completely different from everything you've always done. And I have no idea what she would have come up with, but given that most people come up with something that just blows you away.
You told a very moving story in the introduction that you wrote about the letters that you found when you did take over the magazine.
Yeah, the first day at Gourmet, I opened this cabinet behind the editor's desk, and it was just this huge folder of, I think there was about 400 letters and drawings, and her passing had been so horrible to Gourmet readers. They just loved her, and they had written all these letters, and it just stunned me that nobody had ever sent them to her family. So literally the first thing I did as editor was say, send these to her family. How amazing to have touched so many people's lives.
RF just mentioned that they have the letters in their basement now. So, Deb, how are you doing?
Sorry, I was reading the comments. They're so good.
I know the comments.
Sorry, what
oh no, just about Ruth and Laurie on the loose.
Oh, I would think it would have been so much fun. I just feel like
your eyes light up, so I thought you had
no, because I want to come. I'd be like, this is really awkward because I don't really reach out to people, but I really want to hang out. So maybe I'll have to hope that I can beam this thought to them from my passive way. I think you guys would be good friends and colleagues, and I could imagine I imagine there being like an unshowiness to it, but I imagine there being very good dinner parties and just such a deep understanding of culture and the way people are. And I think that I would have loved for her to be able to write more. It would have been so nice to have more from her.
Absolutely. Some people are putting questions in the chat. I just want to remind you, put the questions in the Q&A box, and we're going to jump over to there in just a minute. Since I know everyone who's tuned in is also a big fan of our three panelists, I just wanted to check in with the three of you and just find out what each of you is up to and working on. Ruth, I think you are writing a new book.
Yeah,
correct?
I'm finishing a novel
Mm-hmm.
and I'm finishing a documentary.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
What's the doc?
It's
Can you talk about it?
Yeah, I spent all of COVID Zooming with farmers, fishermen, ranchers, chefs, policy people, just sort of discovering that COVID revealed all the cracks in the food system. And, my husband talks about it as like, I went to graduate school in food, but it was amazing. And, it was all these people I'd never met before. And, talking to them once a week, I got to know, a woman farmer in Nebraska, a rancher in Kansas, a fisherman in Connecticut, and just sort of talking about what was happening to them during this time.
Ruth, when will the doc be out?
I don't know, we're editing it now, so.
And how about your book?
Well, I'm about to turn it in, so we'll see how much work my editor thinks I need to do.
And can you say, is it a memoir? Is it a
It's
novel?
not a memoir, it's a novel.
Another novel. Very
It's
exciting.
a novel that takes place in Paris in the 80s.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
fun.
Okay. Very excited about that. Stephanie, how about you? What are you up to work-wise?
I have 2 children under the age of 3, and that is 2 children too many. And I'm working on a novel
Mhm.
and loosely like putting together the idea for a food related book somewhere down the line. But I'm in TV land at the moment. That is my day job, and I'm grateful to have it. The novel has been like asking someone how their novel's coming along is just, Kerry, that's mean. That's not nice.
In my defense, I didn't know what you were working on. So
Yeah, no, but when you asked Ruth, I was like, oh my God, please don't ask me that. No,
well, I cheated as far as Ruth goes. I kind of knew she had finished it and turned it in. So
yeah. It's exciting. I'm happy to be writing fiction again.
mm-hmm. Deb, I know you're up to something.
You guys are doing so much. I'm like, what is this? I do very little. No, I just I finished my 3rd cookbook very recently, so I'm in edits for it now, or I'm supposed to be. I didn't say I was working on them. Probably my editor's listening. Okay, so I should shut up about that. So anyway, so I'm in edits for my 3rd cookbook, which will be out next fall. I am still blogging at Smitten Kitchen, which just turned 15 this fall, which is wild to me because it would be like a mouthing off high schooler by now. I feel like every year I read like, another thing about how nobody's writing on the web anymore. And I'm like, no, I'm not going anywhere. Like I had to take a break here and there, but I'm like, I still love it. It's still my favorite thing to do. I mean, obviously cookbooks, but there's something really fun about, there are these weeks, it doesn't always happen, but I can be like, what do I want to cook this week? What should we work on this week? And it's just so like to have that kind of freedom in a career is incredible. No, that was really it. We just shot a bunch of cooking videos for YouTube in my poor apartment, which is like cannot handle it. We had a film crew in here this week doing some videos that are coming up, just cooking, and that's it. That's all of it.
On the 15-year anniversary. That's huge. And on the
Thank you.
We can't wait for that. All right, we are going to look at the Q&A. Oh my gosh, we have 12 questions. Okay, if anybody has questions, get them in there now. Our first question is from Susan Golden. All right. You've kind of answered that one, but I'll throw that out there again. Why do you think her fiction and cookbooks have resonated for as long for so many of us? I think we've kind of answered that, you know.
I think I would add one thing to that, which is just that they were never, they're not trendy, right? They weren't trendy when they were published. And there's this sort of like democratic egalitarian approach that you could walk into any supermarket in the United States and make a Laurie Colwin meal and feel that you had like a heightened gourmet experience. And I think that is what is so incredible. Like people still read MFK Fisher. Some people I saw in the chat are still reading Jane Grigson, but they're not sending you out to the market to be like, I'm making shepherd's pie tonight. Like there's a timelessness to the kind of food that she's cooking, potato salad, roast chicken, like things that will never fall out of fashion. I think that helps.
And I think too that, you know, in a Martha Stewart age, when there's this idea of striving for perfection and that you should be vacuuming the motor in your refrigerator, there's something really wonderful about, she rents a place in the summer and she's talking about mice cavorting through the cupboards. And that's most of our real experience. And it's wonderful to have someone just give you permission to, live the life you really live instead of the one that is made for, your photo op. And I don't think there are enough people giving you that kind of permission. Look, your napkins don't have to be ironed, and your plates don't have to match, and that's fine. That's how most of us live, and it doesn't mean there's something wrong with your life.
Ruth, here's a question for you from Kate Parker. Back then, gourmet seemed so highbrow to me, and Laurie was the opposite of that. How do you think gourmet saw her as a contributor? Why and how do you think she impressed them?
That's a great question. And I asked myself the same question because here was this young voice in what was at the time a pretty old, rich demographic. And I never asked anyone that question, and I wish I had, because I do not understand what she was doing there.
All right, we have a question. Lots of us have been comfort reading Laurie Colwin during the pandemic. Who are your comfort writers aside from Laurie? Stephanie, you want to tackle that one?
Sure. I read cookery books still constantly before bed. I'll read Canal House. If you guys don't know about Canal House Cooks Every Day or the Canal House Journals, they are my treasures. I still read Elizabeth David, MFK Fisher constantly. Embarrassingly, I'm going to embarrass her. I read Ruth all the time. And it's a meditation practice, actually. It's just like a stack of cookbooks next to my bed. I read for work all day. I'll read novels, I'll read scripts, I'll read for virtual events. And then at the end of the day, I just want to read about food.
Deb, how about you?
I'm sorry, I'm the opposite. I don't ever want to read about food.
Yeah.
It's not that, it's just that it's like, it's my whole life. And I also, because I'm just coming out of this, like you're writing a cookbook, that I almost tried to a point, stay away from other food writing, because I just don't want it to like stitch on to anything that I think I'm having an original thought. I mean, there's no such thing as an original thought, but I tend to stay away. So I was literally like going like this, trying to see my nightstand, this stack of books. And I feel like I'm going to disappoint you guys if I just tell you I have the new Sally Rooney there, like everybody else, and the new Franzen. There's other ones too, but I tend to read a lot more like novels in the evening and the weekend, mostly because I feel like I need to read something else. But throughout the workday, I'm lucky because I'm my own boss, that I can dabble into any kind of essays and stuff that I want. I remember in my first few years of doing my site, where I still had a day job, so it was my evening thing, I was constantly devouring all of the great food books on the, because I wanted more and more of it. But once it became my 9 to 5, when I was not working on cooking, I wanted to make sure I was fueling my brain like not with food TV and not with food books, but with novels and other kinds of enrichment.
Ruth, how about you?
Yeah, I read fiction endlessly, and I listen to fiction, actually. You know, I've always got earphones on, listening while I'm driving, walking, cleaning the house, whatever. I'm listening to fiction, and I devour books. I don't, the food books I read, I mean, I read Elizabeth David and MFK Fisher, and then Marion Cunningham, just because I miss her and I want her voice. But that's not so much comfort to me as just for me, comfort is going and being someplace else, getting, you know, just living someone else's life for a while. So, you know, that's.
Can you single out any? Kristen Anderson would love to know what everyone's reading in particular right now. Current recommendations.
Oh, well, I just finished Ninth Street Women, which is actually not fiction, but
that book
is
incredible.
Incredible.
Did you read Fierce Poise?
No.
There's a slim Helen Frankenthaler bio that came out. It's, you know, a quarter of the size of Ninth Street Women, but I mean, Ninth Street, what a delight. What an inspiration. Everyone should read this book. I'm putting it in the chat.
Yeah, no, I can't stop talking about it. And it's odd for me because mostly I read fiction, but somebody said to me, you should really read this book. I grew up on 10th Street. So it was like, okay, I'll read it. And then, you know, I mean, the lives that these women lived, you know, there they are. They're in New York City in the 30s in unheated lofts with all their clothes on, painting with gloves on, doing everything for their art. And they're such interesting people.
All adding that to our reading list. All right, Susanna Witt asks, the quote, she feels like a friend, unquote, is such a common, even universal response, especially among women. Why do you think she elicits this as a passionate, almost cult in a good way following? What is that effect in your opinions?
I think she sounds completely non-judgmental. I feel like whatever delightful thing you made for dinner last night, she would be delighted by. I don't think it would ever be from a food perspective. I would never, or she would never give you advice on how to make it better or anything like that. I think you get this impression she really enjoys being in this space with other people. And I think that's just so different from being in a space with people and analyzing it and reporting back on it. So I feel like she feels like, I mean, who wouldn't want to hang out with her?
Yeah, exactly. I don't think I can say it better than that.
Yeah. Let's have Deb be the word on that.
All right. Next question. Talk about Laurie as a Jewish food writer.
Well, if she's a Jewish food writer, she's very much, you know, a New York assimilated Jewish food writer. You know, which is part of why she's so familiar to me. People are always asking me to, you know, talk about my Jewish upbringing, and
oh my goodness.
And you know, I mean, we had ham or bacon on the table every day. My mother's, you know, the thing she cooked best was lobster. So.
Deb.
I definitely get that a lot, where people want me to be. I mean, I grew up a little more Jewish eating than that, but not tremendously. And I feel like being Jewish and being an expert on being Jewish are not the same thing. It's just certain foods I'm familiar with, certain foods I'm not, but it's not, I don't know. My mother taught herself to cook from mastering the art of French cooking. She got Julia Childs. My mother was in love with California cuisine. So these were the things that we ate a lot of. So there was a lot of artichokes and asparagus and beef bourguignon, far more than I remember tzimmus, latkes, anything like that.
Mm-hmm. All right. I think we have time for one more question. This is from Kristen Griffin. You talked about how Laurie Colwin was such a departure from the popular food writing voice of her era. How would you describe the dominant food writing voice of now? And what kind of disruption do you think food media needs? That's a big question.
Whoa.
Wow.
Ruth. That's Ruth.
The dominant food writing voice today is very different than it was even 2 years ago. I mean, we've had this moment where everybody suddenly realizes, oh my God, it's time that white men stopped having, everything to say, and that other people got to weigh in. So suddenly, we've got this wonderful moment of voices that haven't been heard before, a cacophony of, all kinds of people of color talking about food in ways that haven't been spoken of before. And, it's fantastic. It's hard to say where it's going from here.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah,
Stephanie.
I think the disruption is in process with representation and diversity, and having people who know the cuisine talk about the cuisine. I think this is happening across many media forms, but I think that authenticity matters now, and will continue to matter. I mean, to Ruth's point, it's like, where does it go? Is it a moment, or is it a total revolution? And hopefully it's a total revolution and we continue to build from there. But I think we're seeing the disruption.
I hope so. I really love this moment. I love what's happening. I love getting to hear from so many people who previously said that they couldn't get a publisher to listen to them, getting book deals. And so it makes me so excited about the future. It feels so rich and interesting. So it feels good.
And it's so exciting to see food presented as ordinary food that used to be presented as exotic.
Yes.
And it seems so important to me that happened. I mean, at the same time, I think the idea that anybody owns any food, we have to get beyond. The idea that you have to be of that culture to be able to write about that food. I'm very hopeful that we'll move past that, because, recipes and food, it's a constantly changing, you think about the Columbian Exchange and how that changed the food of the world, and it continues to change. So, I hope that this is just a moment and we'll move into the next one.
Thank you all. Our mom's back. Laura, hi. Before I hand it back over to you, I just want to thank everybody. The comments have been amazing. I know
Oh my gosh.
didn't get to see them, but hopefully you can read them afterwards. So thank you, everybody. And I just want to thank RF for jumping in and sharing so much with everyone during the talk. So Laura, over to you.
Yeah, hi. Thank you, all of you, for this. It's been absolutely wonderful. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, RF, for sharing those photos. That was absolutely amazing. For panelists, I will save the comments and we'll send them to you just so you can look at them afterwards if you would like. I know it was hard to keep up during the chat. But thank you, all four of you, for sharing your time with us, for sharing your love of Laurie. I just could not be more delighted that these are back in new editions, and Ruth and Deb, just you sharing your perspective with new readers of the book, of the books, and readers who already love the books is just really invaluable. So thank you for that. And I hope you'll all come see us when you finish your new projects in Seattle. So thank you, everyone. We recorded this, so we will share it on our YouTube channel within the next couple of days, and we'll send it to everyone who registered, so you can watch it again if you want.
Great.
Thank you, everyone, and stay safe and healthy.
Thank you, guys. It's such an honor.
Bye.
Thanks, Kerry. Great job.
Thanks,
Yes,
Ruth.
thank you.
I miss all of you. Nice seeing all of you.
Yeah, good to see you too. Bye.
Bye.